Mr. Chairman, thank you so much. Admiral Harris, Dr. Sisson, thank you. You know, I hear us talk a lot about the definitions of warfare, and I think that that's something that needs to be redefined or rethought about. And I really appreciate Dr. Sisson's stance with regards to strategy as well as for resilience. You know, my whole thing is that while the U.S. may not be at war with China, I would argue that China has long since been at war with the U.S. from an economic, a resource, and a cyber warfare perspective. I think that we also have to identify the geopolitical alliances that's occurred with regards to Russia, China, Iran, and North Korea. You know, the entire incursion that we've seen in this war in Ukraine has a lot to do with Chairman Xi's One Road, One Belt initiative. His desire to expand the Eurasian border, take Africa, take Oceania, recreate this maritime Silk Route while dominating ports and railways, as we've seen with the development in Djibouti. I think that ultimately what we're looking at here is a real need to defend our maritime shipping lines, because their ultimate goal will be to eliminate the US dollar as a global currency while cutting off the Western Hemisphere supply chain with the Horn of Africa, the Mediterranean, Red Sea, Black Sea. And that's why areas like Moldova, as you mentioned, are certainly a key area as it does not fall under Article 5 with NATO. I would say, however, that one of my colleagues, Carlos Jimenez, Representative Jimenez, had talked about the importance of energy, and I agree with this. I think that if we wanted to actually go after China, we would have to look at the economic strains that we would put on them by stopping reliancy, but also by understanding that the true global currency will be energy. We're seeing where he is exploiting the strains between ourselves and the KSA with regards to OPEC and trying to eliminate or replace the petrodollar to the petro-RON, petro-ruble as a way to throw us into hyperinflation. But we're also watching Russia go ahead and start utilizing the communist agendas and push things like the Chavez in Venezuela, looking at Petro in Colombia, but also the mainland Chinese and the Darien Gap who are actually printing fentanyl. Now, in knowing this and knowing that we are being outpaced, we're being outpaced militarily, we're being outpaced economically, I believe that resilience, readiness is really a key here, not pronouns and DEI as it's being defined. I would say, however, Admiral Harris, that one of the things you talked about was this surveillance balloon. And while I agree that it was good to go ahead and to shoot it down, I also view this as a vulnerability assessment by the Chinese and how we will react, where our actual mitigating measures will be, when we will identify, and what altitudes we will identify. And I think that allowing it to come across the United States was a huge mistake and a failure. If the idea was to shoot it down in a safe area, then we could have done that over the Pacific, and that would have been something where they had already violated our airspace. I also noted that you said that you did not think that they were printing fentanyl with the intent to kill Americans, and I disagree with that strongly. I think that this is a multi-pronged strategic attack that does not involve kinetics, and while we do need to get involved in the kinetic element for readiness, I think that the economic resource and cyber warfare has long been launched. Could you please say once again that what your stance is with regards to those two?
Yeah, so I disagree with you, Congressman, on both. I do think that shooting it down over the Atlantic was the appropriate response, and I don't think that China is creating fentanyl with the express purpose of killing Americans.
But you don't think that that's one of the things that they think into a factor of that this is actually a focus now by the Americans? Yes, you've utilized the term, we can walk and chew bubble gum, and I do understand that. But I have a hard time of understanding that this is just some type of an economic advantage as opposed to something which is intentional and killing more Americans than any conflict that we're currently in. So with regards to the spy balloon, I'll ask once more. You still feel, though, that allowing it to transverse across the entire United States, going across areas that even civilian aircrafts are not allowed to go across, was a correct approach to this incident?
I do, Congressman, in this instance, because of the danger that shooting it down over the United States could have presented. I mean, it was the.
But we could have shot over the Pacific. Is that not correct?
Only in territorial waters of the United States.
As in when it came across around the Aleutian Chain area,
right.
or
right.
as
if it's in territorial waters, then it's flying over sovereign airspace. But I don't know if when we first detected it. I mean, according to General Van Herk, he did not detect as a NORAD Northcom commander at least 4 previous balloon transits of parts of the United States: Florida, Texas, Guam, and Hawaii.
Gentleman's time's expired. Chair, and I recognize the gentleman from
Thank you so
Nevada.
much.